Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another round of sound. This is the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. I'm Bob Pompeani. Thanks for joining us tonight. We have many topics to get into, including the controversy at Churchill Downs at the Kentucky Derby. Video replay taking over the world. We'll get into that. We'll talk about the Penguins in their offseason and how much legit talk is there about a trade of Evgeny Malkin. But the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown will be the Pirates, who take 2-3 from Oakland, and they did it today in dramatic fashion with a walk-off winner by Starling Marte. Here's your panel left to right television screen. We have with us Andrew Fillipponi from Pony and Muller, the PM team in the afternoon on 93.7 The Fan. In the middle is Jeff Hathorn, sports director at Sports Radio 93.7 The Fan, and Paul Zeise has a radio show and a good one on The Fan, as well as being an outstanding columnist with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. So let's start with it. Andrew, I want to get your take now. They're 16-15. Given all that's happened with the Pirates, and I'm talking about injuries, I counted no fewer than 14 people who have either been on DL, IR, or out at some point. How impressive is 16-15, or do you think it should be better than that?
I think they are who we thought they were. Isn't that Dennis Green's?
Yes.
Denny Green, is that his famous line? Paul's a Denny Green guy, right, Paul? You like Denny Green? You like that speech he gave?
The Arizona Cardinals.
They are who they are.
Well,
the Bears are who they were. Yeah, that whole thing.
Are we going to crown them now or what?
This is, everybody's crystal ball said the Pirates could be a 500 team or better and still be the 4th best team in the NL Central. And isn't that exactly where we are a month into the season? You're looking up at Milwaukee. Chicago got red hot after a wretched start. And St. Louis, Goldschmidt trade has lengthened their lineup. So, you know, they're treading water, which is good in a sense, Bob. But, I mean, I'm not more optimistic about their chance Central 31 games into the year.
I think it's positive, like Andrew mentioned. I mean, they could have been buried by now with all the injuries that they've had, and given some of the key positions that they've had those injuries at, and the fact that the bullpen hasn't been, even with guys healthy, hasn't been what they were counting on it being coming into this season. So the fact that they've been able to just hang where they're at and still be in the conversation, I don't think they're a good enough team to contend for the division, but at least they're going to hang around for a little bit longer than maybe they could have.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, if you look at their record versus bad teams versus their record versus good teams, that probably gives you a good insight as to why they are where they are, because they've played a lot more games against bad teams. That's not to take away for anything other than to say the fact is they've not been very good against the good teams. I think they're 3-11 against the teams with winning records.
Yeah, not good.
Either way, one thing I think that people should be very careful about is we keep talking about all these injuries and how if these guys were here, it'd be so much different. I mean, I look at, for instance, in left field or whatever, the injuries they've had in the outfield, and this kid comes up and he's been hitting, like 490 or something for 12 games or whatever. I mean, Brian Reynolds. I couldn't think of his name. Brian Reynolds. Okay. You're going to tell me that Corey Dickerson would have done that? I mean, my point is, the guys that have the injuries to the shortstop actually helped the situation, I think. My point is, a lot of the guys that have actually played maybe above their head, or they've played well enough that I don't know that if these other guys come back, that it's going to necessarily translate into all of a sudden this team's going to go on a run.
Or they've gotten opportunities for players the Pirates would probably never have given them to without the injury. So, Jeff, that leads me to this. Mitch Keller is pitching well. They need help in the pitching department. Tyone's out now. Archer's still out. Would you bring up Mitch Keller and start that clock?
I wouldn't start it yet. He hasn't done enough for me in AAA over a long period of time that I'm going to risk that. And, Nick Kingham's a guy who's been that 7th, 8th starter, so give him a chance and see what he has. Brault, I think the same thing. I don't have a problem with what they're doing right now. If another guy goes down, then I think you're in necessity. You're with Keller.
I totally disagree with that. Keller's 23 years old. At some point, you got to take the training wheels and the diapers off your biggest pitching prospect.
Has he been that impressive in AAA?
Have you seen Nick Kingham start at the major league level? Last year, he started the first game after the Archer trade, and that kind of set their big losing streak in motion. And Brault, my goodness, I mean, maybe he could win American Idol, but as a starting pitcher in the major leagues, Bob, I'm serious, the guy's ERA's 8.
I know, he's starting coming up.
If you are a legitimate team, I can understand an emergency situation, but it is embarrassing that they are throwing both of those guys out there this week.
And Brault, to me, Brault is like the new Jeff Locke. When no matter what he does, no matter where he goes, for some reason, they seem to just keep giving him opportunities, and they like him, and they keep trying to defend him. And he's a great dude. I'm not saying he's a bad guy or anything. He's just not good enough. And, I don't know if Mitch Keller is the answer, but to me, if you're going to go out and try and tell us that you're serious about contending, you better do better than Nick Kingham. You better do better than Kingham and Brault.
They speak out of both sides of their mouth, though, with not rushing guys. Cole Tucker is ready to play,
well,
but Mitch Keller isn't.
He's struggling at the plate, though, you have to admit.
Okay, but they're giving Tucker a chance.
Right.
I like that.
But out of necessity. What else do they have?
Out of necessity, we got Nick Kingham and Stephen Brault in the rotation, Jeff.
But I think what Cole Tucker's done at AAA is better than what Mitch Keller has done at AAA.
Cole Tucker was at AAA for what, 2 weeks?
No, he was at AAA for some last
Well,
year.
Cole Tucker, if nothing else, has made the left side of their infield better. I mean, here's the thing, and I know I'm totally probably way out of line here, but I'm going to tell you, I think they should bring up Brian Hayes, too, and get rid of the two guys. I mean, to have them go on with their life's work, the 2 third basemen, and at least the left side of your defense will look like what it's supposed to look like, because you have 2 guys that know what they're doing, and they're guys of your future anyway. I would have Reynolds in left and trade Corey Dickerson, and I would go with Diaz and tell Cervelli to go somewhere.
So you guys are for full rebuild.
I don't think if you put
bring up the AAA team.
I think if you put those are all the guys that are your guys of the future.
And also, that's not a rebuild.
It's not rebuilding. I think the guys that you have are nickel and dimers anyway. So why don't you go with the young guys who might be able to do something?
What have Stephen Brault or Nick Kingham done that would lead anybody to believe that they're a better option than Mitch Keller right now?
Well, to me, it's just what Keller hasn't done at AAA. I don't think he's earned this chance to be in the majors. And I'm not saying that either of those 2 guys are great options, but I think Kingham deserves another opportunity.
Let me ask you this now. Speaking of prospects, we see Tyler Glasnow doing what he's doing. I find it interesting because it goes against the philosophy I think the Pirates have long employed here, which is pitch to contact, take advantage of a shift. And while that may work for guys like Trevor Williams and maybe Stephen Brault, when you have power arms, it doesn't necessarily translate. So I ask you this. I know that trade was made, Paul, with Archer as the target. Everyone liked that because it was something that they normally don't do. But are they also to blame for the lack of development with the guy they traded because they weren't willing to play to his strength?
Well, yeah, and I think part of that, if you read some of what's been written about it, I think they've changed that philosophy a little bit. So maybe too little, too late, but they've changed that philosophy where they're going away from pitch to contact. And I think the thing with Glasnow is it was more than just the pitching philosophy. It was more than he just was never comfortable here. Maybe the pressure of being who he was got to him, and he couldn't, he just couldn't handle it the right way. Whatever. Getting out of Pittsburgh. There's a million reasons why all of a sudden he's doing what he's doing. Obviously, the pitching philosophy helps, but I don't think that's the be-all, end-all.
Yeah, I think it's for guys that have come here and had success under Ray Searage, and Ray got so much credit, but a lot of those guys may have just needed a fresh start like Tyler Glasnow. The pressure's off. They don't need to worry about performing at this level. The expectations aren't so high, and now you can go there.
Okay.
And now that the expectations grow, we'll see what
All right, so
Glasnow
if you guys aren't going to blame the Pirates for what Tyler Glasnow has done, how about blaming them for what Chris Archer hasn't done? And I don't want to hear that this irritated thumb is the reason why he's pitched the way he has this year. The guy's now made a dozen starts in a Pirates uniform, and how many of them have really knocked your socks off? Maybe 2 or 3? They traded him. It was the same theory that they've had with A.J. Burnett and Liriano Part 1. When we get a guy out of the American League East and get him into Ray Searage, get his hands on these guys, it's going to instantly make the player a better pitcher. And Archer, as far as I'm concerned, has regressed. So the trade has backfired big time, and it makes matters worse that Glasnow and Meadows have played well, and who knows, Boz might turn out to be something too.
All right, we're going to go to a break on that note. Interesting Pirate talk. They're off tomorrow. Texas comes to town. Brault and Kingham will be your starters. All right, now let's talk about a major move that's just been made. The former Kenny Ross Chevrolet and Nissan and Zillion Opel, both now part of the number 1 Cochran team. This is number 1 Cochran's first ever Chevy franchise and Nissan store number 4. Right now, you get grand opening buy lease offers plus an extra $1,000 over Kelley Blue Book for your trade. It's only at the new number 1 Cochran Chevrolet and number 1 Cochran Nissan in Cranberry. Gino Malkin next. Cochran Sports Showdown is brought to you by number 1 Cochran. Go one better.
And by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. Have a greater hand in your health.